Proverbs 31, chapter 31, verse 26 says, "She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teachings of kindness is on her tongue." A very good evening to one and all gathered here, to the memorial tribute of Mrs. Kusum Padmanabhan. We are glad to have in our midst our headmistress, Reverend Sister Vanita, our sisters of the presentation communities, retired teachers, past pupils, friends of Mrs. Kusum, and our very special cookie. Today we are present as one big Josephite family to celebrate the life of our beloved teacher with whom we have shared our love, respect, ideals, and admiration. Education is not the filling of a pot, but the lighting of fire. True to the words of W.B. Yeats, Mrs. Kusum has always been that igniter, kindled in us a fire to be a virtuous person of the future. In memory of our beautiful teacher, let us usher in light as we carry this candle forward. Let us vow to be a beacon of light, just as our dearest teacher, Mrs. Kusum, did.
There is a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, some dark and cold. There is a spirit who brings a fire, ignites a candle, and makes his home. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn, and hold out your candle for all to see. And take your candle and go light your world. Take your candle and go light your world. Frustrated brother, see how he's trying to light his own candle some other way. See now your sister, she's been robbed and lied to, still holds a candle without a flame. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the lonely, the tired and worn. Hold out your candle for all to see, and take your candle and go light your world. Take your candle and go light your world. 'Cause we are a family whose hearts are blazing. So let's raise our candles and light up the sky, praying to our Father in the name of Jesus. Make us a beacon in darkest times. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the helpless, deceived and poor. Hold out
As a tribute, let us now maintain a minute of silence as a tribute for our dear, beloved teacher, Mrs. Kusum. Shall we stand and pay our tribute to our teacher? Thank you. May I request Mrs. Padmini Gangadharan, an alumni and teacher of St. Joseph, to enlighten us with the word of God.
Name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, with cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
May I request Reverend Sister Vanita, the headmistress of St. Joseph Anglo-Indian Higher Secondary School, to lead us in prayer.
Divine giver of life, we are humbled by your wealth of mind and heart, of body and soul. On this day of thanksgiving, we turn to you with a deep sense of heartfelt gratefulness. Mrs. Kusum, your life was a blessing to us, your memory a treasure. You are loved immensely and missed beyond measure. You had been a kind-hearted person, touching the lives of people around you. Your compassion and kind ways had helped the needy. Your spirituality and guidance had helped many. We are grateful for the blessings that you had been in our lives. On angels' wings you were taken away, but in our hearts you will always stay. We will hear your whisper in the tallest trees, feel your love in the gentle breeze. When we find we miss you the most, inside our beautiful memories we will hold you close. We believe and trust you are an angel watching over us with the comfort and blessings you bring. You embrace our hearts and hold us close forever on angels' wings. We remember Mrs. Kusum's daughter Cookie, Uncle Ramesh and nephew Ketan, and all those who are mourning at the loss of Mrs. Kusum. May she continue to be a blessing to us. This Thanksgiving Day offers the opportunity for each one of us to slow down and gaze more carefully the wealth of Mrs. Kusum, who are so dear to us. Let us now pause for a while to remember and give thanks. Our response for the prayers: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. We give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You led and guided us when we searched for the way. Response: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You challenged us to be loving in spite of our words and behaviors. We give you thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You offered us insights through your teachings, both written and verbal. Response: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You disturbed our security and encouraged our risk-taking. Response: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You helped us trust in peace by your non-violent spirit and forgiving heart. Response: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You inspired our courage by the example of your life. Response: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You saved our sanity with your laughter and light-heartedness. Response: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You accepted our idiosyncrasies with compassion and understanding. Response: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You strengthened our faith and desire for God. Response: we give thanks, Mrs. Kusum. You urged us to keep strong sense of hope. Response: eternal rest grant unto Mrs. Kusum, dear Lord. May her soul rest in peace. We conclude our prayer time with this hymn by saying goodbye to Mrs. Kusum.
I wanted you for life, you and me in the wind. Never thought there'd come a time that our story would end. It's hard to understand, but I guess I'll have to try. It's not easy to say goodbye. For all the joy we shared, all that time we had to spend. Now if I had one wish, I'd want forever back again, to look into your eyes and hold you when you cry. It's not easy to say goodbye. I remember all those great times we had, so many memories, some good, some bad. Yes, and through it all, those memories will last forever. There's peace in where you are, maybe all I need to know. If I listen to my heart, I'll hear your laughter once more. And so I have to say, I'm just glad you came my way. It's not easy to say goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you, sister, for leading us in prayer. May I request the president of the Alumni Association to address the gathering. Mrs. Hamsa Sheshadri will now address the gathering.
Dear sisters, dear teachers, and my dear friends, with a very heavy heart, I welcome you to this gathering. It is not every day that we meet a teacher like Ms. Kusum. I know how many of us and how many of our lives have been intertwined with Ms. Kusum's life. We knew her mother, Mrs. Lala. We knew her sister, Miss Kanu. We knew her brother. We knew Amma, who was a cook. We knew Manna. We knew every aspect of her life. And she knew every aspect of our life. She knew our mother, our father, sisters, brothers. She knew what we did at home, what was our home like. All sitting here. And later our lives have been intertwined with Cookie, who came in and we saw a different person in Ms. Kusum. Ms. Kusum was no longer the person she was for the past probably 35-40 years of her life. And Cookie became the apple of her eye. Cookie meant everything in life. Everybody else left early in life for her. Even Mr. Padmanabhan left after a very short life with her. There was one more thing that I was thinking of. The way she changed our life by being our guides teacher. In fact, she touched each of our lives. I remember one or two instances. Once we had gone to Elagiri, and I think about 30-40 of us were there. We landed there around 12:15. This train that stops at Jolarpet around 12:15. And she just told us, all of you lie down here. And we never thought even for a moment. The moment she told us, we all just slept on the pavement. And the three teachers who were with us, Ms. Kusum, Ms. Dolly and Ms. Damayanti, they also slept with us. So that is how she brought confidence in us. That is how she ensured that we grew up and grew up differently, boldly, grew up to face the world. She took us, many of us here are president guides. She took us to Delhi. I received from the hands of the president at that young age of 14 or 13. You know, even after so many years, I've never been able to go anywhere near that. You don't get to meet the President of India day in and day out. I was in fact recently speaking to her. I was telling her in history she had taught us American Revolution. So while I was in US, I was watching this American Revolution and how, so I was telling her how there was no textbook for this topic, you know. And she gave us notes and we studied from those notes for our 10th standard. And we knew nothing beyond that. Cold War, and we only know those 2 pages that she had handwritten and given us, or she had read out in the class and we took notes. And that is all we knew about American Revolution also. Maybe few things we would have read over the years, but that was the basic knowledge that we had. And for many of us, both in English and in history, she was the only authority and only person to refer to. We had nothing else, or we never bothered to check with anything else. Anyway, we have lost Ms. Kusum. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mrs. Hamsa. 28th of August was a tragic day to most of us. We were perturbed on hearing the demise of our dearest teacher. Though this loss is unbearable to our hearts, I'm sure our minds have grown stronger, determined to walk in the paths illuminated by this magnificent teacher. Miss Kusum will not permit us to drown in an ocean of sorrow, but will want us to rise up like a phoenix and live up to the morals exacted from the portals of St. Joseph. And so, we are here to enhance our lives with positive memories of our dear teacher. Mrs. Kusum's respect for the family of Presentation Sisters is worthy of praise. We have with us this evening Reverend Sister Jairani, former headmistress of our school, to offer her words of love as a tribute to Miss Kusum.
I am here to talk to you from the core of my heart. I didn't write anything. If I break down, excuse me. Miss Kusum, the pillar of St. Joseph, the mentor of my life, is no more. To think that she is no more, it pains me. I never thought that she would go in my absence. That was very painful for me. I met her a few times before I was going to go to Pune. And she came to St. Coloman's the last month of April few times. And sometimes she came in and sat with me, spent time along with Dolly. And sometimes one day, the last time when she came, she stayed in the auto, which I never knew. And when Cookie came and Mummy is waiting for so long, and after a long time she was telling that she was waiting in the auto. I came out and I fired her. How could you do that? You could have come inside, sat there, and I had asked her to spend one afternoon, have lunch with me. Then she said, no, that we will plan out a better way and we will call all the other pillars. So some of my pillars are here. And when I heard that she was no more, it took long time. That whole day, my whole group in Pune was trying to console me. But I had one happiness that I was able to speak to her just before 1 week before that she passed away. She spoke to me a quite long time in the phone. And I've been telling her to listen to the doctors and take all the medicines and things like that. But I knew there's something else really worrying her in the corner of her heart that I could feel. This is what going on in my mind. And the real experience that I had of Kusum after her death, I want to share with you. I had retreat on from 20th to 28th of September. We had a retreat after all our programs. one day, every day, I sat 3 hours continuously. One day, I knew her that tomorrow is her birthday. On the eve of her birthday, that we have come together. As I was sitting, she just came to me. And I had a 1 hour conversation with her. And I began to cry in my prayer. And I was asked only one question. How is that you could go in my absence without saying goodbye to me? And she said, that was the day meant for me. The Lord has written in the book of life that I have to go on that day. I remembered her on 1983, January 20th, when I entered here as a young sister, made my first profession. And that year, the old house was here in the convent, and the children, the nursery school, Sister Yvonne was in charge. And those times we were so much connected with both school. Most of the programs were taking along with both teachers. So I thought of her appreciating me for the dance that I did on 14th of January in 1983, November 14th. You won't believe, on that day, that photo came in the memory. It struck me. I just couldn't believe how this photo could come today onto my memory. So I took it up and I served that photograph myself. My 23-year-old I was. I danced for children on that day, and I remember her appreciating for my simplicity and my humbleness. That is what she, who always says to me, for your openness, for your simplicity, for your humbleness, you will grow, sister, she used to tell me. So I said to Kusum, who has been a mentor to me, especially in 2005, when I came here, I never dreamt, never thought that I would come to this school to be a principal. And as soon as I came here, she was the first one to retire from my hand. So only 1 year she had a chance to work with me, but that 1 year was 1,000 years life for me. And she continued after her retirement. She continued for the sake of me. I asked her to correct me because I, who worked in the Tamil medium continuously for 13 years, was too much for me to jump into a higher secondary school or high school of English medium. That was also Anglo-Indian schools. It took time for me to, not I was frightened, but to keep communicating in English was a little difficult for me. But I picked up by the help of my dear sister Josephine, who is also no more. And I took up in St. William's and came here, and I told her, I am your younger sister, as I'm not come here as a principal for you, but for you I am your younger sister. So take note of when I speak at the assembly, and any time you can correct me. To 3 people I said it, who I felt very, very, very free, and I told them to correct me. The 2 of them are here. One is my dear Dolly, and another one is Mrs. Maji. And many other teachers are here. I think Miss Prema is not here. And so this is the way she brought me up. Today, if I am able to stand here and speak and successfully completed my years of service in the field of education, it is because of her. And after that, she stood by me as I was the education coordinator for 7 years for our province, and for the education policy, preparing the education policy of the presentation school, and also doing the recruitment of teachers for the schools of Chennai, In many ways, she stood by me, and I will never forget what she has done for me. Today, on this beautiful day, on the eve of her birthday, I pray that God may rest her soul, that she may experience her eternal beatific vision. And may God, who walked with her all these years, continue to walk with our dear Cookie and find a good life partner, and that she may be settled according to the wish of Mrs. Kusum. I have few blessings for Mrs. Kusum, who lived more of a Christian life than as a Hindu. Come to me, all who labor and are heavily laden, and I will give you rest. Often she says these words to me, and I told her, hold on to Mother Mary, who will hold you close to her heart and close to her son. She will give you everything that you will expect of her. So she lived up to that whenever she asked me to pray for. So at this moment, I pray. He only takes the best. God saw you getting tired, and a cure was not to be. So he put his arms around you and whispered, come to me. With tearful eyes, many of her beloved ones watched her and saw her passing away. Although we loved you so dearly, we could not make you stay. A golden heart stopped beating, hard-working hands at rest. God broke our hearts to prove to us He only takes the best. Dear Kusum, I miss you so much and I love you. May God be with you and may your soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, sister, for sharing your treasured moments, the most cherished moments that you had experienced with Miss Kusum with us today. And thank you for the efforts taken to participate in this memorial tribute. Even during Miss Kusum's frailing health, she was so appreciative of her extended family. The retired teachers were always special to Miss. They were closely knitted with strong bonds of love. Traveled with Miss through thick and thin. On behalf of the retired staff of our school, may I request Miss Dolly Samuel to pay her tribute to her dearest comrade, Mrs. Kusum Padmanabhan.
A very good evening to each and everyone here. And I believe that we have gathered here as a mark of respect of what she meant to each and every one of us. And I think that's the reason why we are here. It gives me, I think this is a very great privilege for me to be able to stand here and to be able to share some thoughts, some words, some experiences that we have had. And it may not be very different from what each of you would probably be saying too. And I'm very conscious also that many of you love to say something about her because she was dear not only to the teachers, the sisters, but she was dear to every student. And she never put aside any child. And she always saw to it that she had time for every child. And it didn't matter to her whether it was late for her to go home, but she would stand and talk and listen to whatever problems and whatever students had to say to her, because every student was different. All students are not the same, and we have different challenges that children go through, and they need somebody to talk to, somebody to lean on. And many students found a lot of comfort, consolation, and strength when they could tell her whatever they felt in their hearts, because they couldn't share probably with people at home. And she was always willing to listen with the readiness and a willingness. She didn't care how long it was, whether she was tired. Sometimes she would be standing and talking and talking. I will tell her, at least sit on the steps. You can talk, but sit on the steps. Don't be standing so long. But for her, she would be so deeply involved in the child's welfare and in the child's problems, and that she would not even take notice of how tired she was. That's how she always gave of herself everywhere, not only with children, with teachers. She always found time for everyone. Maybe she neglected her home, but to her, it gave her a lot of joy when she was able to comfort and strengthen some soul that needed strength. And I like to just say many things that probably we could go on for the amount of association and the experiences that we have had. But I would probably be selfish in being able to stand and hold the mic for very long. But I have just a few points. And according to me, she was a very grand and noble personality, a very grand person of a different category altogether. We've had good friends, we've seen good friends and strong friends, but she was of a totally different, noble, and a very dignified person altogether. And what I have here in the form of words, it seems inadequate to be able to express what I really feel and what she really was, not only to me, but to many of our staff members, many of the students, many of the sisters in the management. I'm sure every one of you will agree that words are inadequate. But yet we need words, and words are the only means of communication, so we have to use words. My words may be very weak and frail and feeble, but all the same, the strength of what I want to say probably would be conveyed through all this. For me, I always found her to be a very deeply God-conscious person, a person who relied on God. At the core of her personality, she was reliant on God. Nothing could deter her, her hope, her trust, and her faith in God. She undertook many risks. Like Hamsa said a little earlier, risk-taking. She didn't do it boldly because she could do it, but she knew at the back of her that there was a strong God, a very powerful God who was at work in her life. And she boldly made quick decisions. At the right time, she would make the right decision. And the rest of us, obviously, we would abide by what she said, and everything would go on smoothly. There might have been tough challenges. I remember once we used to go trekking to this campsite here near Avadi. We had to get off Tonakela. We had to get off the station after Ambattur, and we had to walk and take the Annanur. We had to take the children walking. So I remember once we got off the train, we crossed the tracks, and we were walking along the tracks, and there was this Brindavan that was coming by, and we were so close, the children were so close. She just said, don't stand too close to the tracks, just move away as far as you possibly can from the tracks. There wasn't much space though, but we went past, and she said, don't move, you just stand where you are. Till the train went by, and the train just whizzed past, and it was gone. But every one of us was safe because God's hand was there. So when Hamsa said something about risk-taking, I recalled this. And there was yet another incident at Yelagiri when we were all in tents in at the campsite. And one night, after we had finished dinner, the persons in charge of the YMCA campsite, they said it's best if you come away from the tents and come into the building. So there were 2 rooms, and we moved the children. It was well past 8:45, 9, and they said that they could hear elephants around. They used to come around. I remember Janu, Sanu, they were all there. And all of us, whether children or adults, when we are thrown open to such risk, we were literally standing. They had the lights in the room, but we were all saying, we were reciting the Lord's Prayer together. All of us. And we went on, and some of the children said the rosary. And maybe after, I don't know, maybe after an hour or 45 minutes or something, we were just standing. Some of them were literally in tears, crying, because it was a very terrifying experience for all of us. But we could not cry. Children were crying, of course. But after that, the men came. They had torches, wood. They had lit up the wood with the fire, and they were walking all around the campsite to make sure that the elephants don't come this way. And then they opened the door and said, you can go back. You don't have to fear. All the men are around. You have nothing to fear. You're quite safe. We went back. We slept. And as usual, in the morning, we get up 5:30 for jerks. And when we went to the top of the hill, we could see elephant dung to make sure that the elephants did come, and God saved us. So what I'm trying to tell you is that she had within her this deep God consciousness, that God was with her, and she always made, obviously with the help of God, made the right decisions, and God saw us through very tough times. Lots of my experiences, even here in school, we've had many things that we did, but whatever we did, even if it was putting up a backdrop, those days we used to have farewells, and when children passed out of school in 10th and 12th, and we didn't have 12th standard. So all the decoration, children, teachers, we always sat together. And we were not only the high school teachers who sat together, but we used to have all the teachers. Miss Leena will be there. She will tell us this color, and this is how you cut the leaf, and this is how you put the flowers, and this is what you should do. So we were always a group whenever we worked together. We never worked individually, and we always did things in a group, and so there was so much of joy when we worked together. We were never alone. And there was so much fun and laughter, and I think we still treasure those kind of moments that we went through. I also have here within, on my paper I've written, she was a born leader, highly creative, innovative. She would come up with she always thought out of the box. She never thought along the lines that we generally think, but she always thought out of the box. Very creative. Her handwriting was excellent. She would just write, and we would just cut the letters, and we would put it on the backdrop. Those days, that's how it was. We used to get chart paper, and Kusum used to just write freehand, and we used to cut, and we used to put up the backdrop, and we'd be one of the last ones to leave the school campus. Sometimes sister will say, it's high time you leave, that's enough of all this. You can come in the morning and do the rest of it. But we never went till our work was done. And she was one, whatever she took up, whatever she put her hand to, she always excelled in it. Whenever she took guides out on competitions, let it be at the district level or at the state level or even at the national level, when she took students to Pachmari, they always came back with laurels, with standards. They never came back empty-handed, not even once. And many of you, I think, will testify to that. So what I'm trying to say is that in everything that she did, she was in a class by herself. She was not just like any other person. There was something, a lot of dignity to her life and to all that she did. And I think I'm very privileged to have had a friend like her, to have been with her to have learnt many things from her. She would never give up. She would never give up, no matter how grave the situation was. I remember how when Padmanabhan was in the ICU and the doctors were saying he may not last very long, she said, "No, Sam, you just read." So we read Psalm 34, we read Psalm 33, and she just clung to those words, and we prayed together, and from somewhere, I don't know from where, but some confidence would ooze out of her, and she was able to go through many, many tough times in her life. She had seen lots. She saw Padmanabhan go, she saw her mother go, Mana go, all people who were dear to her life. And through everything, I believe that she survived and she got through, and she still was a very strong person, a towering personality. And I think I'm very privileged to have had a good friend like her to have been with. And I really don't know how we would be able to go on, but then God has been very good, and I believe that He will see us through. And I was thinking in my mind, what is it that Kusum would like to tell all the students and all the next generation? What would she like? And I thought, surely God would have said, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant," to her when she came up. I believe firmly. And the Bible says that a faithful man will be richly rewarded. So whatever God gives to each one of us to do, whether it's a big job or a small job, the job doesn't matter. But our faithfulness and the way our attitude to whatever we do, faithfulness, commitment, dedication, those were her watchwords. And I believe that if we are faithful in whatever God gives to us, we would be richly rewarded. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. God bless you all.
So much true to the life that Miss Kusum has led. Just 2-3 weeks before Miss Kusum's demise, when we had visited Miss Kusum in her house, we have never seen our teachers sick, or they never showed to us. They always reflect positivity. They are so sturdy and strong. That is how we've always seen our teachers. So for the first time I saw Miss, though I've traveled with Miss for many years, for the first time I saw Miss sick. And that was really heartbreaking to see. And but Miss was so full of positive energy. That was actually running in my mind. Miss kept saying, "I thank God for my extended family. I simply thank God for my extended family." She did not complain about the pain or the aches that she was going through. I'm sure at that point of time, Miss would have been suffering with pain, the physical pain. But inwardly, I think it was bliss. She was so happy to see so many of us around her. So that was really beautiful. And thank you, Miss Dolly. And on that day that we had visited Miss said, "I thank the Lord for my platinum friend." She referred to Miss Dolly. Miss was not there around actually. She was busy the other end of the room. Miss said, "I thank Lord for my platinum friend. She's so rare. Rarest friend." I think they both were so compatible, the best friends ever. And so much to learn from them. Thank you, Miss. A pillar of strength to Miss Kusum, the spiritual counselor, mentor, and a lovable friend of Mrs. Margie Rose. May I request Miss to reminiscence the wonderful days cherished with Miss Kusum.
Good evening, one and all. There's been so much said already, and so beautifully said, that I don't know whether I should be able to say so much. But I'd like to begin with the words of the psalmist. "Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his faithful one." The Lord cares deeply when a loved one dies. The death of a faithful one is valuable in his sight. Again, the Bible tells us, where do we live? or whether we die, it doesn't matter if we are with the Lord. And we all know that Kusum was surely with the Lord. Kusum's conviction was that God called her to bring light to the world. She embraced the girls of Paramore, who she would serve through education. Her perception was clear. She saw that many young people feared that the world was not going to allow them a future for various reasons like poverty, ignorance, family beliefs, and society at large. But Kusum's idealism led her to look beyond, seeing how things were meant to be for every one of her students. She never looked at their circumstances. She always looked beyond. Through her innovation, in her teaching methods, her extracurricular activities, she discovered the needs of the young and helped to facilitate growth through love of God and of neighbor. There have been many references to Kusum already. And today I would like to look at Kusum as a lighthouse, bright, calm, serene. Like a lighthouse in the times of darkness and uncertainty, she became a sign of hope to her pupils. I believe everyone will agree on this point. Many of you I know, through personal testimonies that you shared. She could not quell the storms or remove the rocks, but she guided her pupils to safety. The lighthouse I speak about was not built on sand, but built on love, love of God, and love for others, be it the sisters, the co-workers, the non-teaching staff, pupils, and parents. And that list could go on because, she was loved and known by all people in this locality. She was an educator who did not just impart knowledge. It was service with love, where there was respect-filled openness and tender care. All of us present here today are beneficiaries of this kindness and dedication. On the day of Kusum's death, and even just before that, I heard from many pupils, why Miss Kusum? Yes, this teacher who we could describe as par excellent. Why should this fate befall her? I've heard that from many. And here's my answer to you. Those of us who saw Kusum saw her deteriorate slowly over the years. And again, I quote from the Bible, as St. Paul would say, while her outer nature was being wasted away, her inner nature was growing strong to prepare her for the crown of glory that she was to receive. And today we believe that Kusum is there, having received that crown of glory from the Lord. Now my parting shot to all of you. The life of this great woman reminds us that we can all make our lives sublime by sharing love, love for God, and love for others. Whether you're in schools, offices, hospitals, wherever you're working, take something from Kusum's life and impart it into your own life. And you will really be really remembering Kusum and serving her in your own way. I think that is what she'd want from everyone. Not just words, but she would want to see action in your lives. So please do make your life sublime in the love of God. Again, I'd like to just end with the words of St. Paul once again. I thank my God, dear Kusum, each time I think of you.
Thank you, Miss, for those words of love. Every conversation that we've ever had with Miss Kusum, it was never complete without Miss uttering the name of Cookie. The love of Miss Kusum's life, on behalf of our dearest teacher's family, Miss Priyadashni Alai's Cookie, the daughter of Miss Kusum, will thread a garland of love for her mama, Miss Kusum.
A very good evening to you all. At the outset, I would like to thank each of you for being there for Mum and me, emotionally, mentally, materially, and spiritually. Your love and prayer carried us through a very difficult period. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, the Lord promises, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope and a future." His plan and blessing for me was to have Mrs. Kusum Padmanabhan as my mother, and for that I am thankful. 30 years ago, I entered my mom's life. I remember asking my mom how she knew that I was chosen for her. My mum then told me that she saw me as an 8.5-month-old baby in the cradle. My eyes fixed on her, and then she gave me her little finger to hold on to. And I held it so tight, not wanting to let go of it. That was when my mom knew that I was meant for her. From then on, till the very last, we held on to each other's hands. These 30 years of our journey were exceptional. My mom went out of her way to give me the best. She loved me, pampered me, spoilt me, and yet she was firm with me. She was my strength when I was at my lowest, and always reminded me that I could make it. I remember how she would simplify my notes for me and give me keywords to remember, details and dates for my exams, especially history. I remember how she would be awake late at night during my last-minute preparations for my semester projects and exams in college. We also traveled together and shared many special routines. She even took me on her teacher picnics and a few of her get-togethers. We were never separated from each other. The 76 batch will recall that I was always there when they met with Mum. What Mum enjoyed the most was recalling the poems and quotes she liked the best. And at night, both of us would just relax by reading her favorite poems and recalling her favorite quotes. She also loved to sing and recall her very special moments with her teachers and students, especially the guides. She was always on the balcony to send me off to school, college, and work. We would wave to each other several times until I reached the gate of the building. We always communicated with each other throughout the day, especially at 4 p.m. to find out if I was on my way home. As with every mother-daughter relationship, we had our differences and arguments. But at the end of every day, we knew deep down in our souls that we loved each other and were thankful for each other. I thank my God for this grace. She left me behind, but she lives within me. Her values live on. She taught me to love unconditionally, to forgive, to be kind not just to humans but also to animals, to be generous, to be upright and honest, and above all else to be God-centered and prayerful. I would like to conclude this tribute to my mum with one of her favorite quotes by Stephen Grellet. I shall pass through this world but once. Any good that I can do or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not differ or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Thank you.
Cookie was meant for Miss Kusum. Miss Kusum was meant for us. And so, Cookie, you mean a lot to us, and you are part of us. We will always be there for you, Cookie. Thank you so much for being here for the tribute and participating in this memorial tribute, and for making this day complete. Thank you. Miss Flory Pereira, she is unable to be with us today. This is our retired teacher. Miss shared with me an anecdote. Miss was, they were all in the choir. They participated in the choir service, the funeral service of Sister Dennis, late Sister Dennis. And they sang a song during the demise of Sister Dennis. And Miss Kusum was taken up by the words, the lyrics of the song. And she asked, what song is that? And Miss Flory spoke about it and all that. And then Miss Kusum said, when I am no more, you have to sing the song for me, Flory. And this thought just came to Mrs. mind as a flash yesterday when she was saying her family rosary. So Mrs. abroad, she's not here in Chennai. And so Miss forwarded the video to us for the alumni to play this. And so here is a song tribute for our loving teacher.
There's a land that is fairer than day, and my baby can see it afar. When the Father is on the way to prepare us a dwelling place there in the sweet white water, we shall be on the
we next have a video presentation, a video dedication to our dear teacher by Mrs. June Joachim, who was a daughter of late Mrs. Irene Joachim. Mrs. June Joachim and Miss Kusum were classmates. They passed out in the 1960s. And here is the tribute of Mrs. June Joachim.
Kusum was a special friend. She was more a sister than a friend. We grew up together. We loved sharing our good and difficult times. We played, studied, went to university, and even took up teaching as our careers. Our lives were so entwined that this love for each other never ever faded. This was a bonding of the two families. We were touched to watch the amazing last journey Kusum was blessed with. This truly says what a wonderful and well-loved person Kusum was. Her legacy will live forever. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you to all who gave Kusum their love and time when she needed each one of them most. God bless all of you. In sadness, June and Chris, on behalf of our precious mom and dad, Irene and Maxie Joachim and their families. Lots of love. God bless.
We thank the Joachim family for their tribute. Our teacher was ever energetic and an enthusiastic student of our school, a dedicated teacher, a devoted, zealous guide captain, a friendly, retired teacher. Miss has been the president of our Alumni Association and rendered yeoman services for the benefit of the school and school community. Fun fairs to raise funds for the cause of Daphne, a past pupil, and many, many more services. And such was the depth of commitment for her alma mater. Today we have with us the alumni to pay homage to our adorable teacher. May I request Mrs. Geeta Devi Madhavan, Secretary of the Alumni Association, to share a few thoughts with us.
Good evening, respected sisters, respected teachers, and all dear friends who are here. We are all here, gathered here, to show our immense respect, more than respect, the immense gratitude that we carry with us for making us what we are today. I'm sure each of us would agree that Miss Kusum, who has left us, has actually touched our lives in every form, in every bit of our childhood, in molding us to what we are today. She has a big contribution made. So that's the reason why we are here to actually celebrate her life. Every alumni meet we have, the first question when we send out invites, the first question that comes in from the students, from all the past pupils that we meet up and we try to reach out to, is Miss Kusum there in the meeting? So she was one of those icons, the key persons that everyone looks up to, meet and greet. They want to actually see her. Some students, like a few students here, really past students, so many years past there, and we had the opportunity to see them there in some of the alumni meets. Never did we know that we actually celebrated her life physically by giving her the Best Alumni Award, the first of its kind. Our committee was able to do that last December. And she was so overwhelmed. And she was the popular icon which every alumni wanted to have as the, to be chosen as the best alumni. So we had this opportunity to give her of the award. And she was so overwhelmed and she spoke with so much enthusiasm. Unfortunately, we do not have that full clipping of the video. we had actually taken a video of her speech to all the students there. So we are so thankful to God that we got the opportunity to celebrate her during her lifetime, celebrate her contribution during her lifetime. Never did we know, life is so unpredictable, never did we know that 1 month or maybe 45 days before her ailment was actually, it came into, we actually met her, one of our friends had come down from Canada, and Uma and a few of us, we had actually gone to meet her, and that is when we saw that there was something wrong. She was not that, there was, she was showing, we always saw her as that strong lady, and she showed signs of fear or despair. She was very worried about Cookie, what will happen to her. She never told us she's unwell or anything, but she was kind of little worried about Cookie. And during that time, I remember long back when we used to speak to her, she used to say that she was one of those families, they were one of those families who lost everything during the partition, and they had to, start from scratch. So I used to tell her, we were just telling her, ma'am, why don't you just make a reminiscence of all those events, and bring it. And I told Cookie, see that she writes it down and we bring it out as a book. And then she said, who's going to make or publish? I said, there are houses now publishing a book is the easiest thing that you can do. If you have an idea, then it all comes. There's so much in the net that you can, all this, kind of, we wanted to just encourage her and bring her to cheer. So that is one time when we saw her a little worried, but like everyone said, she has made a deep impact on each of us. Those watching online, those watching here physically, everyone. And that is the reason why all of us are here. And why her life meant so much to us. And why her not being here, makes so much of a difference and creates a kind of a vacuum for each of us. Thanks on behalf of the Alumni Association. Thank you very much for being here and sharing these moments. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am, for your words of gratitude for Miss Kusum. Miss Kusum was a stalwart, and her mastery of the two subjects, wow, she was amazing. English and history teacher that Miss was. And my sister who studied under Miss Kusum, the 93 batch, she told me about how Miss they could just visualize Shylock. They didn't have to see Shylock. Today we have screens and where we can take them to the AV room and show the videos, and we have Google and whatnot. We have all those sophistications today. Those days, Miss was a living and the live encyclopedia. You can go to Miss Kusum for any reference. It was there on her fingertips, and students could see Shylock through the words and the voice of Miss Kusum. So such was the power of Miss Kusum. And in the group, someone shared about the daffodils, how Mrs. brought the daffodils right in front of the students' eyes, in front of the classroom. I think that's the beauty of a spectacular teacher, and that is what has brought all of us here and many one there online. So we are so grateful to our teacher. And here we have an audio-visual tribute for our loving, beautiful, outstanding teacher, titled Footprints on the Sands of Time.
enjoy a lot of blessings of God because of your simplicity, your largeness of heart, your generosity, and the fact that you still care for your old teachers. You've been asking about Mrs. Cherry, you've been talking about Mrs. Shafter, and I am here with you. It is a special privilege for me that I can still bond with you and that I still consider you as not as my students but as maybe as my own children.
Thank you.
Each one of you and your families. Thank you. For sparing you to come here and to give me a very good time. I had a lovely time. Very much. Thank you. Very much.
We are very honored.
Yes.
Miss Kusum in the classroom was a disciplinarian. She carried the qualities of a quintessential teacher, an ardent guide captain. Her students had great respect and reverence for her. May I request Mrs. Cecilia Sundaram, a student belonging to the batch of 1971, to present the tribute of Mrs. Vinnie Parthasarathi.
Actually, I am not the batch of 1971. I was the batch of 1969, and Kusum never taught me. This Winnie happens to also be my sister-in-law, and she had sent this poem to my sister because she was collecting all that. So since my sister Rosie is also reading, she wanted me to read on Winnie's behalf. So I must make it clear that I was not Miss Kusum's student, much as I would have loved to have been. But I did know Miss Kusum very well. I remember when we were in, I think around the 6th or 7th standard, she came, she just passed out of teachers training something. She was there and everybody went around. All the little ones went and held her hand. She used to be quite plump then, and even then, as a student who had just passed out, she was a great favorite, I think, because everybody went after her and said, "Kusum, Kusum, Kusum." They went behind her. I still remember. I have that picture in my mind of her. And afterwards, I was also a teacher. I taught later at Holy Angels, and Kusum and I have met at workshops. So I do know her, and we shared a very warm camaraderie. And especially as all my sisters had studied under her, my sister and Winnie were classmates. The tribute I'm going to read out to you, they were all classmates, and she was their first, class teacher. She was their batch. I mean, she taught them in the 10th and the 11th. Whereas when I passed out, it was Miss Pereira, and that was the last year. She retired along with us. And the batch which came after us, that is the 70 batch, had her only for 1 year. But even they raved about her. So here goes. This is the memorial speech for Miss Kusum. Winnie is not here. She lives in the United States. Good teachers know how to bring out the best in students. Charles Curate. Miss Kusum was an inspiring teacher who awakened in me a love of English and a thirst for Shakespeare. I don't know many teachers who could stand before a classroom of distracted adolescents in high school and keep them engaged while teaching them the boring mechanics of English grammar or the archaic language of Shakespeare's plays. Her passion for both was infectious. The skill with which she got us hooked on to Wren and Martin was effortless. As for Shakespeare, the play is the thing. Enacting scenes from Julius Caesar made the class fun and interesting. I will never forget the unique challenge of memorizing lengthy passages, many of which I remember to this day. Every emotion aptly conveyed and every word perfectly enunciated. Thanks to her exceptional inspiration, I opted to major in English in college. She had the uncanny knack of helping each student discover their unique passion. Miss Kusum influenced lives both inside and outside of the classroom. Students flocked to her house after school for additional help every evening, and she ungrudgingly offered them guidance and support. She was a dedicated teacher, an empathetic mentor, and a trusted friend who was so well loved and revered. She will always be remembered by the innumerable students whose lives she has touched, by her colleagues with whom she built lasting relationships, by her beloved community to whom she endeared herself, and by her loving family. Her rich legacy is being carried forward by her students who are teachers not just in India but around the globe. Ms. Kusum, thanks so much for your selfless service, for your love of reading and your care and concern through the years. I'm reminded of what Prospero said. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded off with a sleep. But the image of you as the young, energetic teacher, sporting crisp cotton saris and flashing a winsome smile, will always remain in my mind. Winnie Sham, class of 1971.
Dear friends and fellow Josephites, I've been given 3 minutes to finish this talk. I know all of you are already tired of hearing so many speeches, though we can never tire of Miss Kusum herself. So let me try to do it as fast as I can, but with whatever I have in my heart. I'm not going to say it directly from my heart because I know it'll take a very long time. So I've just written it down to make it as short as possible. As Miss Kusum always said, brevity is the soul of wit. Miss Kusum, as we knew her, was a young teacher. Miss Kusum was not Mrs. Kusum Padmanabhan, but Miss Kusum Lala. She was not just an ordinary English teacher, but one who brought life to whatever she taught. She weaved magic as we young girls were mesmerized as she stood before us. No one could teach Shakespeare like her. It was her forte. Prose, poetry, and even grammar, when she taught it, made us fall in love with the English language. She had a good command, rather an excellent command of the English language, and she also commanded the respect of all her students. There was never a dull moment in her classes. Anyone who was inattentive was brought to book by one of her witty comments or remarks. Nobody could look this way or that way or whisper in her class without her knowledge. With her ready wit and her interest in every girl, there was no one who found her classes dull or boring. As for me, Miss Kusum was my favorite teacher, and English was my favorite subject. So, favorite subject, favorite teacher. And she was the best, B-E-S-T, I ever knew. Yes, and her class, our class, 1976 batch, was her most favorite batch. Because she said so. She was in our WhatsApp group till she passed away. Till she passed away, she was in our WhatsApp group and she said it. So that's her own words. So she was not just our English teacher, but also the guide captain and of the Girl Guide movement in our school. She motivated and inspired us and did not spare us until we gave our very best. She made us win competitions by training us to perfection and to excel. She took us to Pachmari. That was the height of it. For the National All India Guide Competition, where our group representing Tamil Nadu came back victorious with 5 of the 10 trophies that were awarded. All credit goes to her for this great achievement, for she trained us that way. We could put up a tent in 3 minutes flat from scratch. Whereas the other states, they took half an hour just to stitch 2 pieces of cloth together. And we were made to redo our whole tent just to prove to the authorities that we had actually stitched it right there. Even in another 3 minutes, we were ready. They were stunned. And it was all her training. Every morning, every evening, she made us do this, practice it again and again and again. In as much as she was strict where duty was concerned, she was also a very fun-loving person. She sang all the guide songs along with us, joked with us, and laughed heartily with us. Miss Kusum loved all her students, listened tirelessly to them, and gave sound advice. However, she did not hesitate to call a spade a spade. She was like a magnet who attracted students to herself and always had a bunch of students accompanying her from school and back home. She knew each girl by her name and also her surname. Even now, when she was in hospital, I was amazed when I saw her addressing students who came to visit her by their full name. The name and surname. Sarah Samuel, you're here. She was so tired and weak, but she still managed to recognize every girl, every teacher, and call them by their name and surname. And she welcomed them into the room. That was how much she loved her students and never forgot a single one of them. I was uniquely privileged to be with our dear Miss Kusum during the last month of her life. I really call it a privilege and a very unique one, because very often during the year I'm away elsewhere. But that month I had the unique chance of being with her. The whole month. It was painful to see her suffer and deteriorate as the disease took its toll. She was very happy to see her old teacher friends and students who visited her while she was in hospital, as it made her forget her pain. I was fortunate to be beside her as she breathed her last in the hospital and moved on from this life to eternity. I was devastated. Though Miss Kusum is no longer with us, she lives on through the lives she has touched and influenced. I end with the words of H.W. Longfellow. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Miss Kusum was truly a wonderful human being. She was one in a million, and I would like to acknowledge that she has indeed left footprints on the sands of time and in our hearts, and we shall follow her. Thank you.
On a lighter note, friends, I'm sure you will agree with me on the controversial point that their batch was the most favorite batch. Yeah, so then we will go with Mrs. Rosie Thomas and all the others, that each of our batches were the most favorite batches of Miss Kusum. Thank you, Mrs. Rosie Thomas, for your rendition, for those lovely words of gratitude. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we'll give it to them. Okay, may I now request Mrs. Titi Phillips of the batch 1978. She's a retired professor and head of Department of History, Dean for Institutional Advancement, first president of our Alumni Association, to share her tribute with us.
A very good evening, and I would like to thank the organizers for having given me the privilege to pay my tribute to my most beloved teacher. To Timothy, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Respected Sister Vanita, the headmistress, presentation sisters, Cookie, the faculty, the alumni, ladies and gentlemen. I think I can see a few gentlemen over here. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the good soul who gave me her specs, without which I would have been blinded this evening. Good evening, everyone. Please take a minute to look around at the person sitting next to you. Just take a second to acknowledge each other with a nod, a smile, and maybe even a handshake. Pay attention to the range of ages among the folks you see. Chances are very good that seated near you are more than one person who was a student of Miss Kusum. When I heard the news of her passing, there were so many thoughts and memories that raced through my head. Just like many of you, I thought about the last time I saw her. I immediately had memories of the last telephone conversation I had with her as that particular visit replayed in my mind. I recalled a few special moments from long ago in the halls and the classrooms of the school. But one thing that I did not think about was how many birthdays Miss Kusum had been able to celebrate. It never even occurred to me to ask this question of the friends and former classmates who contacted me to share the sad news of her passing away. I didn't think about this completely common question at all until it was eventually asked of me. I then realized that it was perhaps somewhat odd that I had not been prepared to answer this question. But it occurred to me that this stalwart, whom we consider to be the best educator we had ever been blessed with, was an absolute timeless icon, a fashion icon too. All the decades have passed since we all sat in her class. That feeling we had when she greeted us back then has not faded a bit from our collective memories. Although I sometimes can't recall what I had for breakfast, that warm and comforting environment Miss Kusum created in her classroom remains forever quite vivid in the parts of our brains that experience pleasure. There is no tapering of our recollections when it comes to matters involving this particular teacher. Memories in our classrooms, in the halls, in the schoolyard, memories of her out and about. In this little town of Perambur, we humans tend to hold on to the best memories of our childhood, and ma'am was most certainly a big part of our best memories. She was indeed and will always be a timeless icon in our lives. Ma'am strived relentlessly to guide us toward a special understanding of how much life could be contained in written words. And she worked very hard at teaching us how to make sure that our own written words were filled full of that life. To a casual observer visiting her classroom for a brief period, her teaching style may not have been seemed much different than that of other teachers in nearby classrooms. But anyone who spent just a few extra class cycles with her could not help but begin to notice what the highest level of teaching excellence looked like. She had a delivery that was both gentle and powerful at the same time. She had a command of the classroom and had the control of every student's attention span. Everyone has thought at one time or another Miss Kusum loved English and literature more than anything else in life. It certainly appeared that way to all of our students because of the enthusiastic level of energy she put into helping us grasp certain concepts and master important skills. But I think we were all wrong. What Miss Kusum really loved more than anything else in the world was sitting all around us. Though 45 years have passed since I left school, and even though many more teachers have entered the mix since I was gone, that consensus is still loud and clear. Oh yes, we all have a second favorite teacher, but those number two choices of ours make a rather lengthy list, even single-spaced. We all have differing opinions on who ranks second as a student's favorite, but there's positively no difference of opinion, not even a smidgen, on Miss Kusum being far and away the number one teacher of all time. So for anyone here today who might have been an educator at St. Joseph's High School, during the time that Miss Kusum was there, you should feel really good about possibly being tied with so many well-liked and respected teachers. What put Miss Kusum ahead and shoulders above the rest was not anything she learned while she earned her teaching credentials. What put her in a league of her own was an unmatched level of kindness, a truly loving spirit, and the heart of an angel. The lady could instill a measure of confidence in those who had absolutely no confidence. This teaching angel could calm a struggling student with unscripted encouragement from a very natural ability that was rarely seen in others. I truly believe that she was capable of moving a person's perception of themselves further along a positive path in just one school year than most of us mere mortals can do for someone else's self-confidence in a decade. This is not a skill she was trained in. This is indeed an artful display of a genetically coded talent rooted in a heart of pure gold. But no matter how skilled a teacher she was, no matter how patient and how kind she was with us as students, no matter how much energy she put into making us the best readers and writers we could possibly be, and no matter how much she loved this artful craft that she so tirelessly and expertly taught to so many of us, she touched our hearts in a very special way that we can never ever accurately or fully explain with the mere tools of these earthly written words. Only a heavenly based language is capable of conveying that message. So, thank you, ma'am, for encouraging me to believe I could do more. Thank you for showing me the direction to achieve it. Thank you for listening to my confused thoughts. Thank you for helping me organize them. Thank you for allowing me to make mistakes. Thank you for helping me to learn from them. Thank you for appreciating me my small successes. Thank you for supporting me through my big failures. Most of all, thank you for giving me your time. Your student, still in awe and still a little scared. May her soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Mrs. Titi Phillips. May I request Mrs. Ivy Jobita? She is there available for us online to pay her tribute to Mrs. Kusum.
Present there. So it is a very saddening state that I have to present this today. Hope I'm clear and audible. Miss Kusum has been an exemplary part in the lives of us. I am a student of the back. I'll continue. Okay. Can I continue?
You can go ahead, Mrs. Jobita.
Okay. So let me recollect the words what was taught in our class. I think my batchmates would also agree. Tarry a little, there is something else. This bond doth give thee here no jot of blood. The words expressly are a pound of flesh. So this was a memorata passage which we had when we did our class 10 English at St. Joseph's. So ma'am was par excellence. She brought, as the person who did the MC said, she brought before us. We did not have any audio visuals. We did not have any YouTube channels then. But we knew how Shakespeare was and how Portia taught us and all those things. So, and then I would like to bring back to my memory a very fond memory which we were a batch of 1993 and we actually, ma'am along with her team, that is class 10, we decided to go on a tour, on an excursion. It was the first of its kind to Hyderabad. And we still remember that ma'am did not want anybody to stop, money should not stop them from being part of this particular excursion. So we had a lot of activities and a lot of other things which we enjoyed. So that was one thing. So as I pay my tribute, let me read out the words of this beautiful poem. God looked around his garden and found an empty place. He then looked down upon the earth and saw your tired face. He put his arms around you and lifted you to rest. God's garden must be beautiful. He always takes the best. He knew that you were suffering. He knew that you were in pain. He knew that you would never get well on earth again. He saw on the road was getting rough and the hills were hard to climb. So he closed your weary eyelids and whispered, "Peace be thine." It broke our hearts to lose you, but you did not go alone, for part of us went with you the day you called us home. We fondly remember Miss on this occasion. So here I would like to share a short story which would be apt for Miss. There was once this small candle which was carried by a man. So he was carrying up the lighthouse and this candle was asking the man, "I am very small, where are you taking me?" But this man said, "You just come up along with me." So this candle along with the man went up. So when it went up, it started and it had a lot of confusion. So when he went right up, there was this beacon on the big lamp on the lighthouse. This small little candle lit up this big lamp and soon the large polished mirrors behind the lamp sent beams of light across the miles of sea. Miss Kusum, you are God's candle. You keep on shining. The success of your work is God's hands. This little flame of your good example has changed the lives of all of us. Ma'am, you are a keeper of the flame. You are a messenger. Today, the messenger has gone, but the message remains. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Jobita, for the words of love. And that was my sister. We were three girls who studied here, Jobita, Janita, and me, Benita. So we are so grateful to our dearest teacher. May I request Mrs. Linda Fernandez Gia, who resides at Australia, to pay her homage to Miss Kusum.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening. Yeah. Good evening. Can you hear? Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Gear, and I'm from Perth, Western Australia. I graduated in the class of 1985. On behalf of all of my yearmates, we're all here to remember and celebrate Miss Kusum's life and her legacy to be carried on by all of us who had the privilege of having her as our English, yes. We had Miss as our English teacher, history teacher, or class teacher in the Girl Guides, and other extracurricular activities. Yes. Oh, okay. No worries. So those of us who were privileged to have her as our English teacher, history teacher, class teacher or Girl Guide captain, and lots of other extracurricular activities. Miss Kusum's passion and commitment to all things that she undertook is unforgettable. She led us by example, and we were all privileged to be part of her legacy as Josephites. Let us all strive to do our very best in every task we undertake and lend a helping hand to those in need, as our dearest Miss Kusum did. May Miss Kusum's soul rest in peace. And to end, I'd like to say a verse from 2 Corinthians. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift.
Thank you, Mrs. Linda. I think the problem being they get to hear their own voices, so they are not able to proceed with the online tribute. Sorry for the inconvenience. May I request Mrs. Radhika Shah, 1980 batch. She's a student of English literature, a railway employee, to pay her tribute for Miss Kusum.
Good evening, respected sisters and dear Josephites. As everyone said, Miss Kusum has touched each and every one of us with her tender looks and her enchanting smile. I thought paying a tribute to Miss Kusum is something special. It should be done in a very special way. So I have tried my hand by writing a Shakespearean sonnet, because she was our English teacher, and as somebody said here, we could see the characters live when she took the class. 14 lines, A, B, rhyme scheme with 10 syllables in each line. I have tried my hand, and I have used phrases from Julius Caesar mostly, because that was a play that she taught us. I hope you like it. At 2, our dear Miss Kusum fell a prey. You, who were constant as the northern star, cruel hands of cancer snatched you away. You came, saw, conquered us from near and far. We know not where our real talents lay. We see ourselves only by reflection. You became a glass reflecting our way to lead our life with full satisfaction. All the world's a stage, one and all say, and all men and women merely players. But your memory forever will stay, a colossus who made us achievers. Your life was gentle, one in a million. Nature will stand up and say, she was a woman. Thank you. Thank you, organizers, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mrs. Radhika. That was really a wonderful rendition. May I request Mrs. Chamundeshwari M. of the 1982 batch. She's worked in Anna Adarsh as a teacher and a lecturer. May I request ma'am to share a few thoughts about this?
Good evening, sisters, teachers, and my friends. Really, it's very hard to express my loving and dynamic teacher who taught me in this campus. Still, I hear the echoes of her teaching, which is fully etched in my heart. Once I finished my 10th standard, I went to 12th. I'm not able to see that kind of teacher. I went to my degree, UG, finished MG, PG, post-graduation. I was not able to see a teacher like Miss Kusum. Miss Kusum played a crucial role in performing, in achieving all the students in oral and communication skills, like writing letters, writing short stories. I still remember how she used to take grammar. It will be in the afternoons. After the lunch, we'll be having the grammar class. She'll write on the board and she explains adverbs, nouns, and adjectives. And she'll ask each student, she know which students is siding of thing beyond her. She'll ask them, each one, the way of thing, what such a dynamic. What we say, the mother cannot be replaced in mother's place. Same thing, a teacher in Miss Kusum place, no teacher can be replaced, because she was she was very good in academic as well as in like a mother in guides. She taught us what will be the future and whatever things. Teaching forever in our minds and hearts, your legacy of knowledge and kindness inspired the generations. Even my cousins, or many of them studied here, used to tell about Miss Kusum. And she played a crucial role in developing students' oral and written communication skills, like written formal letters, reports, and speeches, and poetry and short stories. And she's like a teacher who gives you something to take home. Nowadays, students, just after the school, they go for tuition. Those days, nothing. Once she teaches what's there in the class, that will be retained till the next morning. So, like, nobody can be replaced in Miss Kusum place, as like our mother. Same thing, thank you for your departure for this world may be silent, but the impact you made speaks volumes. We hold on the lessons and memories you gifted us. Your passion for teaching and your dedication to my growth has inspired me in many ways. I cannot put my words. You transferred us to become more knowledgeable persons that we are now. We shaped it and molded to us to become the future models of the future. Thank you. Thanks for giving. Thanks for the alumni for giving this opportunity, and thanks for sisters, my teachers, and friends.
Thank you, Mrs. Chamandeshwari. We have Ms. Maji here with us to share a few words.
I finished sharing my few words. I just want to make an announcement that in the name of Kusum, there will be a scholarship for a very deserving pupil who is in for higher education, and Andrea Jeremiah has agreed to give the scholarship. And sister has already identified one pupil, Shireen Jacob, who will be doing her teacher's training. So walking in Kusum's footsteps, we give her the scholarship. Bless you.
I think that's what it all is about carrying the flame of Miss Kusum. It's not about living in her memories, but reliving the memories. Miss always went forward to help out students who could not pay fees, or she was that very compassionate, and doing what Miss did is really amazing. Thank you, Miss, for the information. And may I now request Mrs. Hemalata to share a few words about Miss.
Good evening, respected sisters. Good evening, my dear teachers. Good evening, my dear friends. I here stand before you on a very sorrowful moment to have a loving tribute to our dear teacher, Mrs. Kusum. Although it's difficult today to see beyond sorrow, may looking back in memory help comfort your tomorrow. Mrs. Kusum Padmanabhan was a wonderful, intellectual person, compassionate, humble, with contagious smile and an infectious laugh. Forever in our hearts, greatly loved, deeply missed, the loss is immeasurable, but so is the love left behind. You have touched our lives in a way that words cannot express. World has lost a true master of art of teaching, and we miss you dearly, Miss Kusum. Your dedication and passion for teaching is exemplary, and it will continue to inspire us forever in our life. Her legacy is etched in our memory forever. Thank you for nurturing us and entrusting us with knowledge what we cherish forever. And one more thing that I'd like to share at this moment is Miss Kusum and myself have a special privilege bondage, common bondage, that when I was studying here, she used to give me a chocolate. Both of us share the same birthday, 3rd October, that is tomorrow. She used to give that chocolate. She used to give that chocolate and say, "Happy birthday, Hema. You're also smart like me. October 3rd bonds are very special people. God bless you," she used. That lingers in my mind, my heart, and my ears forever. Thank you, Miss. Thank you for giving this opportunity for the organizers. A great miss, and we miss you a lot. Please bless us from the eternal heaven. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hemalata, and advanced birthday wishes from the Alumni Association and all of us gathered here. May I request Srimati Nandini Srinivasan, student of the 1984 batch, to share her love for Miss Kusum.
Namaste and a very good evening to the Reverend Sisters, my teachers, the other fellow Josephites, and my batchmates, especially who are here. I think 1984 is the most represented here. We have got Colleen, Sujata, Shakila, Vidya, Selvi, Donetta. All of us are from the 84 batch. I'm not going to take much of your time. I know the tributes have been flowing, right? Just 2 minutes. Our class is very special because ours was the first C section that came up in St. Joseph's, and Miss Kusum was our class teacher. And I think that way we have a very special bond with her. Though we were not the very goody ones, we were a troublesome lot, but nevertheless, she's been far more than a teacher to all of us. On a personal note, if I stand before you here today, It's because of that inspiration she has been to me. Every teacher who has taught me in St. Joseph's, right from Mrs. William in UKG, to every other teacher who has mentored me and molded me, she was the one who helped me discover my destiny of becoming a teacher. And there are a lot of things I can go on, but for all of us here now, she may not be there physically with us. She may be there with us, she's there with us in our memories, but more than that, Mrs. Kusum's persona has now transformed into an emotion that all of us always experience. So thank you for your listening, and I'm sure she lives on in the memories and the hearts of the hundreds and thousands of women she has helped to raise all over the world. Thank you so much. May her message continue to live on through all that we do in our lives. Namaste and thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nandini. May I request Mrs. Petula Pinheiro of the 1986 batch. She has served with the alumni as a treasurer and then as a president for 6 years, currently working as an administrator in a school.
Good evening, Sister Vanita, Sister Jayrani, Sister, and to all the Josephites here. Today, as I stand before you, it is with great appreciation and sorrow, as well as we still mourn the loss of our dear teacher, Miss Kusum. She's a friend and a guide who has left us to be with her Maker. The years of English that we had with her in school and history would not have been so interesting, enriching, and movie-like. As many of you said, it came alive. It was for us also. Like at the present, we have movies. Our classes were always movies because the sound effects, the expression that she gave, and the way she taught. If it had been for any other teacher, history would not be so alive. It was made a reality, and we wished it never came to an end sometimes. Her notes and essays were dictated to the point to make learning easy, unlike the guidebooks that we have now, which many of them refer for learning. Miss Kusum was the one we would look for at every school function or an event, smiling with her crisp cotton sari. In the recent years, she was more of a friend and a companion to me, constantly checking on the well-being of my children and giving them her motherly advice. We became part of her family. All through my tenure with the alumni, she was there with her guidance, correction, and support. We could call on her anytime, any part of the day or night, and she was there. We could drop into her house anytime for a chat, and she would always welcome us with a smile. Her trust in God was strong, even though she went through many losses. I'm definitely going to miss you, Miss Kusum. Not for a brief moment did I think you would go so soon. On the last day, on August 26th, I was able to hold her hand and rub her palm, and all through she was calling on the name of Jesus. I know you were always afraid of getting sick or being alone, but the plans of the Lord we cannot fathom. He did not let you suffer and took you home. You have left a mark on each one of us that will not perish. Cookie, we are there for you always. You can call on me anytime. Though I may not call you, you can call me anytime. Yes? Keep your head high and make your mom proud. Okay? Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Mrs. Petula, for those cherished moments you've shared with us. May I request Mrs. Kadira to pay her tribute for Mrs. Kusum.
Good evening to one and all present here. First of all, I thank the Almighty and the alumni committee members for giving me this opportunity to speak a few words as a tribute to the great teacher, Mrs. Kusum Padmanabhan, on behalf of 1988 batch. We, the batch of 1988, were the students of Mrs. Kusum in class 9 in the early 80s of St.Joseph's Anglo-Indian High School. Mrs. Kusum was one of the best teachers that we ever had in any school. She made all of her students feel equally loved and cared for. She taught us so much about the importance of discipline and the way of communication. We still remember the way she enters the school gate with her bag on her shoulder and some English books in her hand. And we competitively running towards her to help her carry her bag till the staff room is really a memorable one. We are so proud to say that we learned from her. She has been a true inspiration, and we are honored to have had her as our teacher during the important chapter of our life. Her passion for teaching and genuine care for her students have made all the difference in our academic success and also made our lives successful. We have lost one of the best teachers we had ever met. I personally have lost my guru, my mentor, and a great human being. I fall short of words to express my grief on the sad demise of our beloved Mrs. Kusum. We pray to God for her soul to rest in peace. We wish her family members and Cookie immense peace and strength in life. Last but not the least, she was a blaze beyond boundaries. The world has lost a great teacher, but her legacy will continue to live on through her students. Her unwavering patience, compassion, and dedication towards teaching will always inspire us to be better. Thank you for nurturing us and entrusting us with knowledge that will cherish forever. Thank you. Thank you, sister, for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kadira. May I request Dr. Dawn S.S., Professor and Head, Center for Waste Management and Center of Excellence for Energy Research, Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, Chennai, to share a nostalgic moments with Ms. Kusum.
Good evening, everybody gathered here. I am very privileged to stand before you to speak about our most respected and beloved teacher, Mrs. Kusum Padmanabhan. I would just like to read whatever I have written because I really do not want to take much of your time. School is every child's second home. Teachers take the role of parents in school. Every teacher, right from the kindergarten to the secondary education, mentors the students in academics and beyond. Today, we have all gathered here to celebrate one such teacher who has touched so many students' lives with her multifaceted personality. One would remember her taking a lead in every little thing organized by the school. The opening ceremony, the march past, the conduct of the events, and the comparing during the events, the sports day, annual day, celebrations of the school, guide camps, dramatics, and the events take a cue. There will not be a student in the campus who's not familiar with our beloved teacher. At this moment, like me, many of you will think of her and thank her for the impact she has created in our lives. Her distinctness has made us all gather today to pay a tribute to her and celebrate her so that the future generations get inspired. Beloved Miss, we humbly thank you for enlightening us. Just to add on to whatever I have read, written by me, I would just like to add on to my friend's tribute. She has written a very long tribute, but I would just like to quote a paragraph of whatever she has written. If you can't be a pine at the top of the hill, be a shrub in the valley. Be the best little shrub on the side of the hill, by Douglas Malloch. These were the words penned by my beloved teacher, Miss Kusum, on my 10th grade farewell book. The poet gives a profound message telling us if everyone cannot be someone great in the world, but whatever we become, we should do it well, and that was Miss Kusum insisted greatly on, to be the best at what you do. This written by Shiny Teresa Mary from the United States of America, a batchmate of mine, a very close friend of mine. We all represent batch 93. We had the privilege to be under the mentorship of Mrs. Kusum for 2 years. So that was a period when the teacher was assigned for a particular class for 2 years, 9th as well as 10th. So we were taught so many things. We were mentored by her. We learned how to be strict in whatever we used to do, whatever we used to convey, not to take things in the lighter side, be honored in whatever you take up to do. So she has taught so many things, and she has imbibed in us whatever we are all of us are today. And the most important thing that I took from her is to how to carry over a friend throughout her life. So I very well and obligedly remember how she carried her friendship with Miss Dolly, and I remember her for showing us how important friendship is to carry our lives and get better with each of us with friendship. Thank you so much, all of you, and thank you for the opportunity you gave me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dawn, for those wonderful words about Miss Kusum. The batch of students of 1993, some of them are here, with their sponsorship for tomorrow's blossoms of our school for their lunch, towards their lunch. As it is Miss Kusum's birthday tomorrow, they would like to present their token of their love and gratitude and all that they've learned from Miss Kusum by sharing their happiness for all the values that they've imbibed from Miss Kusum to Miss Dolly, which would be in turn given to our headmistress, handed over to our headmistress. It is a sponsorship for the Blossoms, the midday meal students of our school for tomorrow, as Miss Kusum will be celebrating her birthday tomorrow in heaven. Let's put our hands together, and I think we need to come up with some more of inspirational acts like this. And we also need to make note of the absence of Miss Kusum today, because it's the very first event that Miss Kusum is actually absent. But I'm sure Miss is present. She's in our midst for sure. But physically, she may not be here, but spiritually, emotionally, she is interconnected with all of us, with our hearts. Thank you, Miss Kusum. Last but not the least, there's one more announcement for all those who are a little tired. You can always go in for one more cup of tea or a piece of cake to refresh yourself. We have reached the end of today's event, the tribute. I just conclude with something that I have to say. On behalf of the teaching and non-teaching fraternity of our school, I stand here before you to express my deepest grief and greatest gratitude to my beloved teacher, Mrs. Kusum Padmanabhan. I belong to the 1988 batch, so much your junior. To the many associates of Miss who had a question mark on who I was, Miss Kusum would always say, my successor at St. Joseph. Yes, in the words of Mrs. Kusum, I am the successor of Miss Kusum. The most responsible place I had to hold, and with utmost care, I had to handle this responsibility and assure in no way I tarnished the trust my mentor had in me. As a girl guide, the impact Mrs. teachings had on me is immense. Then, as a teacher, Miss was my mentor. Right from the year 2006, the inputs Miss shared with me still holds a special place in my heart and mind. I have learned from Miss not just to impart knowledge to the students, but to impact in them character. There was no compromise in upholding the standards of our school, and definitely not for English language. No shortcuts. Miss had taught me to be just, neutral, and to voice out for what is right. I had the privilege of announcing together with Miss Kusum for the sports day in the year 2006. That was the year that Sister Jairani was our headmistress. A lot of learning from then on. Under Miss Kusum's mentorship, I am what I am today as a teacher. The guiding movement has instilled in me good values and discipline, which I am able to impart with my students till today. To Miss Kusum, God the first and the best priority. To flatter and to be flattered was never a part of our learning. The claps, the yells, eppadi irundhathu, nalla irundhathu, the frog yell, the rain clap, the campfires, I still try to carry forward whenever I get an opportunity with my students. Exotic memories of lofty goals and ideals are still embedded on my mind. Metaphorically speaking, on August 28th, I could only visualize a sincere captain lying cold and a soldiers not just in tears, but with renewed spirit to fight life, to battle life with the weapons of honesty, truth, and loyalty. The morals the captain equipped her soldiers with. So here's my dedication of a poem titled, O Captain, My Captain, by Walt Whitman. I'm sure Miss would have taught this poem to many of you. I'll just make it quick. O Captain, My Captain, by Walt Whitman. O Captain, my Captain, fearful trip is done. Our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack. The prize we sought is won. The port is near. The bells I hear. The people all exulting. While follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh heart, 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 oh the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies fallen cold and dead. O captain, my captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung. For you the bugle trills. For you bouquets and ribbons wreaths. For you the shores are crowding. For you they call, the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head, it is some dream on the deck. You've fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored, safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip, the victor ship comes in with object won. Exult o' shows and ring o' bells, but I with mournful tread walk the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. Yes, I walk the school my captain had walked on. I teach the students my captain had taught. And I will continue to be a soldier, a torch bearer of this most wonderful captain, my teacher, Ms. Kusum. On behalf of the Alumni Association, I'm sorry. This is just the happiness and the emotions that overflow. But I'm sure if Ms. Kusum was here, she will not let us cry. She will want us to strive harder, to work harder, and to live by her principles. And that was the outstanding feature of this special teacher. On behalf of the Alumni Association and Mrs. Kusum's family, our lovable cookie, I extend my gratitude to each one of you present here in a special way. I extend my appreciation to our superior and correspondent Reverend Sister Divya and Reverend Sister Vanita, our headmistress, for being a pillar of strength throughout the planning of the memorial tribute. A special note of thanks to our former principal, Reverend Sister Jairani, Sister Fatima, Sister Marianne, who is not here, and so many of our Sister Vinita especially. Sister, thank you so much for being here to participate in this memorial tribute, and that shows the love that you have shared with each other. Thank you, sister. And we thank all our presentation sisters. I'm sure they would have all watched the program through the link, and all those, the participants, the lovable emotions shared through their online link that we had shared. Thank you so much for being there. A word of thanks to our retired teachers for all the love and the strength given. A note of appreciation to all our teachers, the present teachers, especially the teachers who have given their helping hand in the successful completion of this memorial tribute. A big thank you to all the past pupils, the sponsors. Let's continue to be Miss Kusum's torch bearers. I say thank you to our workers. Please let's put our hands together and thank our workers, because it is a holiday, a national holiday, and they were there to do it all for us. Thank you so much, Nandri, Annas and Akas. And last but not the least, our God, Miss Kusum's God, and it was by the help of God, by the presence of God, that we were able to make this day happen. And let's conclude with a rain clap of Miss Kusum to make this day complete for the works and the tremendous achievements and contributions made for the school. Rain claps, go. And if I had more fingers to clap for Miss, but I have just 10. So Miss really deserved this. I would like to thank our president of the alumni, Mrs. Hamsa Sheshadri, the secretary of the alumni, Mrs. Geeta, and all the committee members for putting their heart, mind, and soul into the happenings of this day. Thank you so much. And last but not the least, we have the floral tribute waiting for Miss. Let us show our love and let the love flow through the petals that we are going to shower at the feet of Miss Kusum, who is there with the Lord this evening. Thank you once again. One, two, three. Yes, ma'am. We could sing the school song. Miss will share a few thoughts about Miss Kusum and her nostalgic moments with Miss.
Good evening, everyone. At the close of a very emotional day, here I am taking the mic when everybody is gone. But I would like to share a few moments of my blessed teacher. Blessed were we, students 4 decades ago of the late 19th century. We were blessed to have most of the best teachers of St. Joseph's during our period. And undoubtedly, one of the best was Mrs. Kusum. She was not only a teacher of subjects, she was a vibrant personality. I remember Miss, the way all of you may remember, she wore gorgeously bright saris with a traditional bindi and a vibrant personality that she was, that she could draw all the students around her like a Pied Piper. Okay? There were many groups of students who would like to accompany Miss as she entered and walked out of school. That traditional Jolna Pai, as we call it, the long sling bag made of cloth. Those days itself, she was very much eco-friendly. And till this day, if you ask any person of our batches, that is, batches since 4 decades ago, we would only aspire, we would have told who's your role model, what is your ambition to be in life. Most of us, at least 80% and above, would have said, I would like to be a teacher. And most of us were teachers. Now there is a big list. I want to be an IAS officer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer. But our days, we only wanted to be a teacher, and a teacher like Mrs. Kusum. Okay, so she was a role model, she was an inspiration, she was a vibrant personality, she had an infectious smile. And I like the way one of the speakers before me said, please look around you. Just give a nod, a smile, or a handshake to everyone around you, for they were students of this great personality, or parents of students, or friends, or extended family relatives, and definitely with whom Mrs. Kusum shared a camaraderie. She would love it even today. And as everybody said, she was a teacher par excellence, guide captain, but above all a great human being. She instilled determination and confidence and all the good life skills that a teacher could teach to each of her students. Many of us can proudly say that whatever we do today, even in our kitchens, because I remember when we were in the Girl Guides movement, we had to pass a cookery test. Until today, I remember the day when I, as a 4th standard student, I asked my mom how to prepare upama. Okay? And we should not use notes. We had to do it then and there, on spot. And I tried my best to keep in mind all that my mom taught me, and I made a dish, something that we all call upama. And Miss had to come and test it and certify us, say that it is okay, she has passed the cooking test. The blunder of my life was done then, but the way the teacher pointed out to me is embedded in my mind till date. And whenever I make this dish, even today at home, I see that the first thing that I use is that particular ingredient, which is called uppu. She so lovingly told me, the first time in my life, I tasted a upuma without uppu. Okay? The teacher could have scolded me or said, what have you done? You know, nothing of that sort. Even that pointing out to the mistake was so very well done that we cannot even grudge or feel bad or anything about it even till today. And the spellings that she taught us, many spellings I can say, till date, even to my students. I am a teacher myself, and I had the great privilege of mentoring Miss Kusum's darling daughter, Cookie, for a couple of years, and it's truly a privilege in my life. Okay? And she was such a doting mother. I remember Miss Kusum I'm going off the thing. Let me come back to what I said, and then I'll talk about Cookie. Separate was one word that I remember ma'am said. We used to write S-E-P-E-R-A-T-E. Till date, I remember, and I passed on this to many of my students. She used to say, part is what we do when we separate two things. We make them as two parts. And that part we separate. Okay, P-A-R-T, we separate with the A. So it should be S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E. Till date, I see many students writing separate, separate, and this is what I have tried telling them. You know, this is, we live by examples. Like we take all these precious things. Like that, I can go on and on and on. These were taught to us decades ago, but still has that lasting impression in our mind. And the poem or the only thing that nowadays the children like is that non-detailed text because it's a story. But in nowadays, grammar, prose, poem, everything was made, you know, so lively. And many soliloquies were by heart for many of us. Even till date, we can go on and on with the soliloquy of any character in any of the Shakespearean plays. So that was what, you know, Miss Kusum gave us. And she had been not only a mentor, a friend, as many of them shared. We could get back to her. Those days, we didn't have the phone and all that. We can drop in at any time. She was Miss Kusum Lala to all of us, that loving personality, who during a point of my time in my life, I lost touch with because we didn't have mobile phones and such things those days. And then after a very long break, suddenly I get a call one day from ma'am saying, Shashikala, she remembered my name. And that itself was a blessing to me. How many thousands or lakhs of students have passed the threshold of St. Joseph's? But still she remembered many students by their maiden names. And that's really great. That's what the teachers' friendliness or bonding or the fondness or the affection that she shares with her students. So she told me, Shashikala, we have started an alumni association and I want you to become a member. I didn't even give it a thought. And she said, it's just 50 rupees. And I said, ma'am, how can I, because GPay and all were not the vogue in those days. So I asked, how can I? Forget about the money. I'm putting in your name. Just give me your address and phone number and all that. And that's how I became a member of the Alumni Association. And many times after that, she used to tell me, please take on some post. Come. You know, she used to invite many alumni. I know. I'm aware of that. And at one point of time, she wouldn't allow me to say a no. And she brought me into the Alumni Association, and for one stint of time, for just 3 years, I was the president of the Alumni Association only because Ms. Kusum wanted it that way. We never questioned our teachers. Whatever they said, that was the Bible verse for us. So she said, I want you to be in the alumni, and I was there in the alumni. And any doubts whatsoever, be it in personal life, be it in professional life, or be it as an alumni association president, I used to only take Ms. Kusum's ideas, her advice, her suggestions, and ma'am was always there to guide and mentor me. So that was really indeed a blessing for me. And as I was telling, I had tutored Cookie for a couple of years. I stay at a place called Kolathur, which is a little far away from here. Ma'am used to bring Cookie all the way from here to Kolathur by an auto. She used to accompany Cookie, stay with her throughout the class, and then bring her back. And, you know, she insisted that I take money, you know, take my fees. I said, no, ma'am, that's one thing I cannot do. She said, Shashi, if you're not taking the fees, I'm quitting. Okay? Because I couldn't find another French teacher, I wanted to bring her there. Cookie was studying not with me, but I only tutored her. But ma'am used to, you know, be very prompt and such a loving, doting mother she was, that she used to stay there. She used to ask me feedback, how she doing, can she, where she has scope of improvement, what she can do. So much, and every time we talk, I ask about Cookie, and she has great plans for her. She had great plans for her. She used to share many things with me. So that was what Ms. Kusum was for me. And as a personal, as a friend or a family member, she had attended many of my family things. She was there to bless my daughter on her marriage. So like this, I can go on and on and on. On August 4th, the day I met Ms. Kusum last at the hospital, Last but not the least, I hope, speaker of the day. My earnest prayers is for Miss Kusum. May Miss Kusum's soul rest in eternal peace and love, and my heartfelt sympathies and condolences to Cookie and to all the extended members of her.
On the shield we bear, firm as a cross our hearts shall be, faith the crown we wear, beauty and truth shall be our star.